Right, so the good news is yesterday's sick dog is feeling significantly better today. The bad news is that did mean I had to spend about an hour trying to find him when he decided he was going to skip off and find something disgusting to eat. So let's get on with it. So, if there are 4 trees that are in every Zambian garden with the space for fruit trees, it is mango, guava, citrus, and avocados. And I'm a little surprised it took me this long to get to putting some avocados in the ground, because we very often have volunteers, not as frequently as with the guavas and the mangoes, because we don't have ground sloths to distribute the seeds. They tend to only come up below the trees, and very often it's not quite ideal for them right under the parent tree. But we get them regularly, so I found a couple of volunteers today that were not going to thrive where they were. They were in a bit too much shade, and I do find that avocados don't tend to fruit very well if they're in full shade, so they'd like a little bit of exposure at least. So what I'm doing is I'm taking them here to my riverine thicket, and I'm going to plant them out in a slightly exposed spot. So the first one going in, which is also slightly more sheltered, I'm putting in with the usual Dracaena fragrans, which will be going with both of them, but all the other companion plants are going to be quite different. So the first one is getting an aloe, which I think is Aloe maculata, the soap aloe. I'm not entirely sure because it's one that a friend of mine gave me a cutting. And it's got a couple of suckers now, so it decided to take off the main head of the cutting, and I'm replanting it. And in with that as well, I'm putting the usual calico fetching coir because that aloe stays low, and so I don't want a calico that goes too high. But I'm also putting some cuttings of the devil's backbone, Euphorbia tithymeloides, just because I would like a little bit more shelter on that little sapling from the evening sun, which it does get there, and it will, as we move a little further into winter, it'll start getting some afternoon sun too. And so if it's got a little bit of extra shade while it's getting started, then I'm happy with that. I can always remove the devil's backbone quite easily later on, and then it'll just be the aloe and the calico, and that should be a good sort of ground cover without once the shade isn't necessary. With the other one, which is going in a more exposed location, I'm putting the standard Aloe Cameroni because it's larger, it'll stand up higher in grass as it gets taller. And because it's going to be more exposed to the afternoon sun sooner, I'm putting in a much larger calico, which is the Calico prolifera, which is the one that is sort of pan-tropical at this point, because it's just so easy to propagate that it seems to have moved with ancient trade routes. And although I would say it inevitably started in Madagascar, you will find books saying its exact origin is unclear, because it spread around with people quite a long time before we were taking notes of which plants we were taking where. So that should be it for today. I will see you tomorrow, and hopefully the dog will not have made itself sick again by its overeating today.